Okay, let's do it. You guys have had a particularly good first quarter around here, with March, I think, standing out in terms of some records. Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've had yet again another record quarter in the first quarter of 2023. We eclipsed our previous record quarter, which was the fourth quarter of 2022, marginally. But this year's first quarter was over 6 million tons greater than last year's first quarter. And March was also a record. So we're pretty proud of the performance of our customers and their confidence in bringing more volume to the Port of Corpus Christi. And I think it also shows strength in the international markets, particularly for American energy.
You ever get worried that people are going to take that for granted? Because I have noticed you guys are always talking about breaking tonnage records, and I think that becomes the expectation. I know at some point, do you ever worry people are going to say, yeah, big deal?
Well, I certainly know that we don't here. We are extremely grateful for the tremendous growth that we've experienced over the last 7 or 8 years. At some point, it will plateau, as all growth trajectories do, but we have had some very unique black swan events over the last 3 years, whether that's the pandemic and the associated demand destruction, whether that's the invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent sanctions on Russian energy. So it's important to understand that global events have local implications, and we're seeing that right here at the Port of Corpus Christi.
Let's shift to the topic of hydrogen. If you can, explain to me what it means to be a clean hydrogen hub and how that connects us now to a bigger part of our state.
Well, Mike, hydrogen is what many consider to be the next generation of cleaner, greener fuels, and we want to be a part of that. It's going to be Texas energy companies that are going to evolve into these cleaner, greener energy sources. They already have the technology, they've got the engineering prowess, they have the infrastructure, and we believe that we can continue to take a front and center role in these cleaner, greener fuels while protecting our current portfolio of traditional energy sources. You know, the population of the global population is expected to grow by another 2 billion people over the next 25, 30 years. They're going to need clean energy. They're going to need all forms of energy. So we think that we're on a pretty long-term, well-positioned growth trajectory for not only oil and gas, but certainly hydrogen and whatever other derivatives of clean energy that will be developed.
Now, am I right in remembering that there is a partnership with the Permian Basin that plays into all of this?
Well, if you're referring to our hydrogen to hub application for hub designation by the United States Department of Energy, yes. We have partnered with many folks around the state. In fact, geographically, our application, which was submitted last week, represents almost half of the state from a geographic standpoint, out to the Permian Basin, down to Brownsville, down to the Valley, up to Matagorda. So we're pretty excited about the breadth of and scope of our application. We think it's a compelling application, and we certainly believe that the Department of Energy will feel similar. It will be, if awarded, the largest grant that the Port of Corpus Christi will have ever received. But the money is going to be earmarked for sub-recipients to help jumpstart their projects, large and small, in an effort to move that energy transition along in a much faster cadence.
So it's not overstating it to say that this puts us really at the forefront in hydrogen and energy efforts.
We certainly believe so.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, again, I'm switching gears kind of quickly here, but I want to make sure to cover this. I know you had a busy day yesterday. The port commissioners met yesterday morning, and then yesterday afternoon, you popped up at City Council to make a presentation along with City Manager Peter Zanoni on desal efforts here in the Coastal Bend. Something caught my ear. You said that we need to do this, we need a desalination facility because we have a problem. Tell me again about what is the problem and how serious is this?
Well, the problem exists not only here in the coastal bend, but across many areas of the state. And that is water supplies are dwindling while demand for water is growing. We're seeing 1,000 people a day moving to Texas. We're seeing businesses relocate from California and from other parts of the country and other parts of the world to Texas. They all are going to put additional demands on our water supply. And so it's incumbent upon us as leaders today to solve for those issues. If we do nothing, we will be in significant dire straits in just a few short years. And that's why when I spoke to the city council yesterday, I wanted to remind them that desalination is not a silver bullet. It's one of many aspects in the water basket that we have to address. Others being conservation, reuse, effluent reuse, and other new water supplies, including groundwater. So desalination is an expensive proposition, and it should be just one of many solutions that we should be pursuing.
And if we do nothing at all, what happens?
Well, according to the Baker Institute at Rice University and a study that they released last year entitled The Economic Impacts of Drought on Texas, it's prognosticating that if we do nothing and the forecasted demand grows between now and 2070, the state will be over 3 billion gallons a day short of water. That will be much too late for anybody to do anything. So we have to start now if we're going to do something, not only for today's generations, but for tomorrow's as well.
I know the Port of Corpus Christi and the City of Corpus Christi have differing ideas about where such a facility should be built. Harbor Island versus the Inner Harbor. How are you navigating that process right now?
Well, I don't know that we differ in terms of location. I know that for us, we look at scalability. We look at, as I said, future generations and what is going to be the demand over the next 50 years, not over the next 5 or 10 years. And we believe that Harbor Island offers a better solution for that long-term scalability than most other locations. That doesn't exclude the Inner Harbor as a viable location for near-term meeting near-term demands. But if we are going to think long-term, generational implications, then we have to be thinking in a much broader scale, and that's what Harbor Island offers.
So Harbor Island then offers the opportunity perhaps to build a bigger facility with more capacity, is that right?
Or a facility where you can grow, you can plug onto it. You know, we're talking about industrial reverse osmosis. That's just adding more membranes. So if we can put in intake and discharge infrastructure that will support a much broader facility, that doesn't mean that when the facility opens, it's going to be producing maximum capacity. It's going to produce what is needed and necessary for the market at that time. But what you certainly don't want is you don't want to open a facility only to have it oversubscribed the day you open it. You want to have some capacity, some freeboard for growth, and that's why we think Harbor Island is an ideal location.
The city manager said in this week's city council meeting that he thought perhaps the city council needed more education regarding the Harbor Island facility. How are we taking steps to see that that happens?
Well, site visits are certainly one area that we've encouraged the members of the City Council and the Port Commission. When you see it yourself, and it can be explained by our subject matter experts as to why the location is so ideal, I think that just goes a long way towards people better understanding the viability of a certain location. It's the same thing with the Inner Harbor. I'll be visiting the city's Inner Harbor location later this week with Mr. Zanoni and with members of the Port Commission, so we can better understand their location as well. Nothing is better than seeing it with your own eyes and hearing it with your own ears.
Are there advantages with the state of Texas to the port and the city working together as one entity in order to bring desalination to this region?
I certainly think that we're always better together as a region. If all of the local governments, such as the Port Authority, cities, counties, if we're all collectively rowing on the same oar, as the governor mentioned when he was here just a few short weeks ago, it really lends to, I think, a better efficacy when it comes to economic development. It's certainly noticed in Austin when we're not working together. So we're really excited about the opportunity to work with the city of Corpus Christi, certainly excited to work with Nueces County and any other local government that has that same desire to be collaborative with the port. We're always welcoming with open arms.
Do you get the sense more specifically that working together will impact perhaps funding for these kinds of facilities?
I certainly believe that if the port and the city are collaborating, not only in the actual project and in the pursuit of business for the project, but in pursuit of funding for the project, I think that just increases our chances of securing that funding exponentially, yes.
One of the questions I think our viewers would have is, how did taxpayers fare in all of this? We're talking about spending lots of money over 3-5 years, whatever it ends up being, because we believe we need these facilities. Where do taxpayers come in on these kinds of things?
Well, taxpayers are going to be beneficiaries of any new water supply. Taxpayers are paying today for roads, they're paying for education, they're paying for public safety, and they're paying for water. But here at the Port of Corpus Christi, the funds that we're earmarking are not funds that have been contributed by the local taxpayers. They have been contributed by the businesses that we provide services to or lease our properties to. And in return, we provide a higher modicum of investment in infrastructure, supporting infrastructure of all types, roads, certainly the new bridge. The port has contributed a tremendous amount in the new bridge, and water is no different. It's needed and necessary infrastructure, and if we can take some of our hard-earned dollars and invest in the infrastructure there and save the taxpayers some money on the front end, we think that they're going to be big beneficiaries of that. Not to mention, think about the water disruptions that we've had. If we have any water disruptions, it affects restaurants, it affects dental offices, it affects doctor offices. So, we really need to solve for water, not just for big industry, but certainly for small business, who I think will be just as big, if not a bigger beneficiary of any water solution that us in the city are able to deliver.
Final question here. You indicated that you believe the economic forecast for this region is perhaps light. What do you see?
Well, if you're referring to the region in water forecast, the water demand forecast, it's my opinion that the region end's water demand forecast may not be fully representative of what our economic forecast is. Our economic forecast is extremely robust. But with that is going to come demands on infrastructure, including water. That needs to be represented in the Region N water plan. So we're certainly engaging with Region N to show them some of the economic development opportunities that we're seeing that are going to place an increased demand on water in our region. And we want to make sure that that's represented in the Region N water plan and certainly in Austin.
Anything else you would add?
We're grateful for the continued confidence of our customers. We're grateful for the continued interest in investing in this community. I am certainly bullish on the future of the Coastal Bend, and I have been it's been an absolute delight for me to continue in my role as the Chief Executive Officer of the Port of Corpus Christi during this very interesting and exciting time for the Coastal Bend.
Good stuff. Sean, thank you again. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Mike.